actually about to bring Priscilla on and have the conversation, but things happen, we move, we're back. So I am Rihanna from Plan Wholesome Empowerment Group, and today we're going to be talking about seasonal self-care with Priscilla Vivian from Vivify Therapy. So before the connection cut out, I was basically saying that during Self-Care Awareness Week, Priscilla was one of the people that provided some really great self-care advice. Hopefully, it won't kick us off. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But we've got a very, very good discussion today, and I'm very excited to be um, having this talk with Priscilla. Hopefully, everything goes well. Hi.
Is it
Hi.
just up again? I don't know what's happening. I've been kicked out so many times.
Oh my God. I'm like, what is going on? I had a power cut just as you came on, and I was like, no, this can't be
Oh
happening.
my God. Well, we'll just vibe until people start coming on again. A couple of people have told me they will be joining, so we'll just wait for them. If they haven't lost hope in us by now, come back.
Literally, literally. But how are you? How's your day been? How's your week been?
My day's been okay, and then I had a slight twist and turn in the evening. So before coming on here, I was just like, gather yourself, center yourself. Yeah. I had to do a bit of that. Yeah. How about you?
Well, same. I was just looking to my left and I was like, stop emailing me. So I'm actually like still in the process of work, but
Bless you. Oh,
I've had a very, very long week, I can't lie. I've been doing a lot of data collection and research around the projects that we're doing around rural mental health. But it's very exciting, I can't lie. I've learned so much.
I was
But
going to say, it sounds like a really exciting topic to be researching.
definitely, because
Yeah.
we take for granted how much services, the influx of services that we have in these urban areas, but people in rural areas, whether it is down to the amount of services or even connection, like internet
Mhm.
connection, being able to get mental health support in their homes virtually is that in itself is an issue. So it's
Yeah.
definitely one that I'm interested in.
So many different factors that come into that as well. I did a bit of training with, do you know the MH Gap training
No.
program? So the mental health gap is it's a program to deliver mental health services where there aren't any mental health professionals. So in rural areas, but particularly like low income countries. So
Okay.
yeah, as you talked about, that kind of reminded me like upskilling just general members of the public to be able to support people, like if you're in the village in the middle of somewhere in an African country and there's no therapist, like people still have mental health problems. What are you going to do about it? Yeah.
That's so interesting. I probably will have to talk to you about that offline because it's for work, but this is for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Definitely. Should we just give it a moment? You're glowing, by the way. You look amazing, as always.
Oh, do you know what? I just put on one tall piece of eyebrow and done. But
Natural. Wicked.
I'm looking for. I'm going out later tonight for my friend's birthday, so I'm actually quite excited to just relax, let my hair down, be around
Yeah,
some people as well.
yeah. I'm glad you're going out later to balance the working late as well. Speaking of self-care, the
Exactly.
balance is needed, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we can either get stuck in if you want, as it will be recorded, or we can just wait a little while for some people to join.
I'm just conscious of your commitments because I know you said you need to leave by 5. So you know.
Yeah, yeah, let's probably crack on. Timekeeping's not my best, so yeah. I'll let you do that. All right, cool.
No worries. Okay, well, thank you, sis, so much for agreeing to be part of this live. I think it's very, very important topic that we're going to be covering, and one that, in all honesty, it does get touched upon, but I don't think many people are very much out there with, look, this is a real thing that you need to be looking after your self-care and mental health, emotional health, especially during these seasonal times. And I find, especially during these winter months, many people tend to become more isolated and reclusive. But
Yeah.
even just after the seasonal time, it looks so different to us all. And
Mhm.
something that I've really been looking into is seasonal affective disorder, and that being very prevalent around this time of year.
Yeah.
And again, it being something that people don't really know much about, but how to actually overcome. So one of the questions people was looking at was some of the common issues that people face around the seasonal holidays. Huffington Post actually said that there's a lot of common factors around, say, family issues, family critique, old issues and arguments being rehashed around Christmas time, even alcohol being a fueling aspect of those arguments as well. Because, you know, when people get happy and merry, they feel very loose tongued. So what's your take on that? And what's your experience of these kind of issues at Christmas time?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, as you were listing them, I was thinking there's a real overlap, you know? It's a lot of the times, like, I'll speak to clients where there's an anxiety around, I know I'm going to have to see my parents, and therefore substance use starts to go up. Like, I need to drink some alcohol or maybe use drugs so that I can tolerate being in that family environment. And then you're pulled back into old patterns of communication because you have family dispute as well. So it's like a whole list of different, you know, things that you've mentioned. And then as individuals as well, friends and family coming together, they may be going through something like seasonal affective disorder as well at this time of year. So it's like just, you know, a mixed bag of like all these different issues, and they actually connect with each other. So it's really interesting to see how they play out.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what? I'm so silly. I didn't even ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you did it before I came on, because I know we got disconnected. We just got stuck in.
Yeah, so anyway, but yeah, please do introduce yourself so people know exactly why we're having this conversation as well. So
For those of you who are joining through Rihanna's page, I'm Priscilla Vivian from Vivify Therapy, and I'm a psychotherapist and mental health educator. So my passion is in mindfulness, mindfulness-based approaches to mental health, and also I work on the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy that means I am because we are. And I very much believe in collective healing, because I honestly believe that the individual can only be as well as the whole, you know? So if I go away and do my work and my healing, and then I come back into my community and they're unhealed, I'm just going to go back to what I was. And I'm not really helping the people around me, you know? So honestly, I'm all about collective healing, community, and connection.
yes, and do you know what? It's come at a perfect time actually, because especially at these times, some people celebrate Christmas, but I know others celebrate Kwanzaa. So I know some of the community principles of Kwanzaa really feed into, I'm guessing, a lot of the work that you do as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't celebrated Kwanzaa in years, and I feel like actually I'm a bit out of touch, but I know a lot of people in the community that I live in do celebrate it. Is that something that you participate in?
Well, do you know what? I think as a general philosophy, I lived the Kwanzaa principles, but specifically identifying the days, Umuja, and all those different days, I haven't practiced it formally in that way. But spirit of Kwanzaa, I think I do it all year round. So I'm very much about community connection, very much about regenerating the cycle of the pound, especially the black pound. So it's principles that I live day to day, but enacting it during, you know, the 26th of December. I've always said, I'm going to do it, but it just, unfortunately, it hasn't happened.
I think it's important that you embody those principles like day in, day out as much as you can throughout the rest of the year anyway. So I think that's really good. That's the main thing.
Yes. So let's talk about one of the principles I know is around finance. So particularly financing Christmas, that's a big thing. So people break their bank trying to save throughout the year, or people buying Christmas presents from like August, or as we had, you know, what was it? Black Friday. People breaking their bank for Christmas presents and New Year's presents. And in all honesty, I don't really celebrate Christmas like that. I'll get my son 1-2 gifts just because he's a child. But at the same time, I don't want it to be a materialistic holiday that he now carry on as a tradition. We have our ability to create our own traditions, but what's your take on finances and the festive season?
Yeah, no, it's such an important topic, isn't it? Because financial well-being, just in general, but particularly at this time of year, there can be just like a massive pressure to overextend your budget. I'm
Mm.
like you as well, but I'm a bit of a Grinch, so I do take it quite far. Like I'm like a bit anti-Christmas, and my birthday's on Christmas Day, so that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think it comes to it's like anything else in terms of making a decision where you've weighed up all the options and all the factors that come in. If you're overextending your budget because you're following old traditions and old norms that your family have been doing for years, and looking at the overall sort of financial well-being of your family and patterns that have cropped up, again, it's like looking at the outcome of why you're doing it. When you're going into a store to buy, you know, to break the bank and to buy all these things, are you doing it because this person in my family will love me more? So are we buying love, you know? And it's like kind of just really digging into why you feel the need to spend so much money at this particular time of year, because, you know, the powers that be said we must. Yeah, exactly. So being able to take a step back and saying, if this is outside of my budget, are there other ways that I can show this friend or family member that I love them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at somewhat inexpensive acts of kindness or different ways of gift giving. It doesn't have to be material. It can be, you know, let me look after your child for the night and you get some sleep. Something like that is a gift of sleep. Do you know what I mean?
That's an invaluable gift for a parent, you know, honestly.
Parents, we both know that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Something that doesn't really get spoken about is the financial cycle breaking. Now, I know for me, finances was something that we spoke about in our household, and I know that there is a lot of poor financial habits that have been passed on in generations as well. And it's like either you'll have a poor financial cycle loop where, you know, bills aren't maintained very well, but you can go and spend how much on Christmas, but yet your bill hasn't been paid. Like the psychology behind that doesn't make sense, but it's accepted. Any of that with your clients? Like they make excuses somewhat to manage themselves throughout the rest of the year, but they've got all the money in the world at Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people fall into that trap. And a couple of patterns that I see is that overspending can be a way of self-sabotaging. If you know you have, you know, a particular financial goal that you're working towards, and then due to pressure at this time of year, which is understandable, you allow that to be an excuse for you to sort of abandon your financial goals and say, well, I'm going to put myself in debt, or I'm going to sabotage this thing. Sometimes there's some mindset stuff going on around being able to actually achieve your financial goals. And that's why you're self-sabotaging by, you know, overspending and doing these things, because there's a part of you that knows it's going to set you right back. Sometimes it's a subconscious way of connecting with your family. Like, these are the bad habits. I know they're bad habits, but this is what we do in our family. So I'm just going to partake in this unhealthy way of behaving. Yeah, because you don't feel left out, or you don't want them to judge you and say, well, why are you actually taking good care of your money and not buying all these gifts? But then it isolates you from the rest of the family.
That's so interesting, and I didn't actually think of it like that. And that kind of goes back to well, before we got cut off, what we was about to start talking about, which was some of the common issues. So I had mentioned about the HuffPost talking about, I'm looking at my notes, by the way, HuffPost talking about critical family members, and maybe touch upon a bit about that, because I can say I've got critical family members. Yeah, I think we all have. But when it comes down to, for example, the gift giving, who more than me, or who hasn't spent, or who hasn't got a gift, and who's got a gift? Like, what do you think the mindset around is about that?
So in terms of the gift giving and with the people that are closest to you, it sounds like you're kind of referring to you using those gifts in a way to kind of gauge like my value to you in that relationship, right? Yeah. I think in that situation, it's about stepping back and saying, how much does this one day or this one season or celebration define our relationship? And why are we using gifts, Christmas gifts specifically, as a measuring tool? You know, because I don't think that looks at the overall like relationship that you've had for, if it's a family member, you've probably known them for, you know, all your life. So why are we not looking at the relationship across the spectrum, and why are we just kind of focusing on this season? I don't think that's like a fair way to say, does this person care about me or love me? And sometimes people will manipulate you to feel like you do have to, you know, like do too much to earn their love. And then it's about looking at that relationship and saying, is this a healthy relationship then?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it also kind of gives people a way to, in all honesty, get whatever's off their chest, because it's like they allowing themselves to be critical because of this one situation, and then they kind of bandwagon all the other critiques on top. So it doesn't become about the gift giving at Christmas. It comes down to the mac and cheese, and oh, I can do it better than you. I can cook the plantain better than you. I can cook the chicken better than you. I find the kitchen wars as well as the present giving can also be a bit of a
yeah. I really like that you mentioned that, because like one of my favorite saying is everything is everything. And in this context is that it could be about the gifts, but actually, as you said, you're using that as an opportunity to deal with the things that you probably wanted to tell me anyway. So like underlying feelings. And a lot of the time, family gatherings at this time of year, you will have that family relationship dynamic play out, whether it's about the food, whether it's about who's drinking, who's not drinking, whose children did what to whose children, you know. It's all really just a mask to express the actual feelings that we've got going on behind that.
Yes. And do you know what I find, especially at this time of year, it is all about connection and community, being at one with people. But you know, last year we didn't really get much of that opportunity because of the COVID restrictions, and it looks like we're going to be facing a lot of it this year with this new variant. So what's your take on the disconnectivity amongst families at the moment, and how can we kind of alleviate this as well?
Connection is such a hard one, you know, because when you look at a lot of like trauma studies, and there are a lot of trauma documentaries out at the moment, just the healing power of connection in itself, and being able to be around loved ones. You know, 2020, I forget which year we're in, but in 2020 there was that documentary that they made, I can't remember it now what it's called, but they interviewed like loads of people who were in isolation, and people were literally breaking down in tears because they hadn't had physical touch, you know, for so long. So there are so many sort of implications around being isolated and not being able to like see our loved ones, like the healing power of like just a hug, you know, or a face-to-face conversation. So I think kind of like we've learned from the last lockdown is just being able to do as much as you can with what you can. Acceptance is a big part of that, you know, because if we're constantly longing for something that we know we can't get, it kind of just makes that, you know, feeling a lot more compound, you know. So I feel like it's important to be like, okay, these are my options, these are the restrictions, but what can I do within the restrictions that I've been given, and to maintain those connections. And for example, I was doing a lot of like Zoom calls and stuff with family and friends, and like it's not ideal having a drink over the screen, but like you just kind of like, you make the most of it, and phone calls, video calls, and maintaining that connection with yourself as well, you know, taking time to ground within yourself.
Definitely. And you mentioned about like people that aren't able to, you know, have that connectivity. I find that especially single people, I've got a lot of single friends that have definitely been impacted by this time, because they live by themselves. They might have a cat, or they might not, you know, they don't have children, or they live away. So it can be very difficult for them to find something entertaining, let alone just find excitement just by themselves. Now, that's not to say that they can't find it, but it can be that much more difficult when you're independent by yourself and away from the rest of your family. What kind of advice would you give to someone in that kind of situation?
That is such a tough thing, because, you know, I'm all about connection, connectivity, community. But if you're literally by yourself, you don't have a partner, you don't have children, you don't have friends that you live with, again, it kind of goes back to that acceptance piece, you know, and it's really difficult because it's such an unnatural way to be. It's, do you know what I mean? It goes against everything within our being, to be by yourself in your house, literally by yourself. And I honestly take my hat off to anyone who's made it like from 2020 and is thinking about perhaps being faced with that as a challenge again, because it's the hardest thing to not have, you know, human connection is such a foundational need for our survival. But I think, again, just finding ways that you can connect, you dipping into your self-care toolbox, whether that's speaking to your therapist, if you have online therapy, speaking to your people in your support network again. And sometimes that's something for me when I've personally experienced loneliness is sitting with the loneliness, because there's a lot to learn in there. And it might not be the time where you want to learn and you're just like, it's not a time for learning. I just want to be around people. But sometimes the hardest times are where we actually learn so much about ourselves. So, you know, it can just be one line every morning, waking up, opening your journal and just saying, you know, I feel really lonely today because, you know, I wish I could be connected with people because, and that just allows you to get through the process to have gratitude for the times that you have been able to connect with people and to look forward to when you will be connected again. Because it's not going to last forever. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even just the aspect you mentioned, gratitude, that was something that really had carried me through, especially the first lockdown. I really had to frame it rather than we're in lockdown and we're in isolation. I used it as a tool to propel me into a state of solitude, and it being a state of calmness, and using that calmness to really understand what I wanted for myself long term, whether it a year or 3 years down the line, but it really helped me postulate my emotions into, okay, why do I feel that I need to be around people in order for me to be connected and happy? Why do I feel that I need to be physically in touch with someone in order for me to say, okay, I'm okay, but I can be okay by myself. But so what am I running away from when I'm by myself? Because I'm wanting to be around others. And I think it really did help me to kind of, for the rest of the year up until now, like I could say, like, why don't you invite me out? I'm like, because I actually like being by myself now.
And a lot of people have said that actually, that it was really a time to just reconnect with self, because we, you know, we live in a world that's so busy, and even when we're isolated inside, like we're on our phones, we have so many distractions. So I think it has really, for many people, been a time to just say, face, like, what is the hardest thing about being by myself? What am I running away from, as you said, you know, like, why can't I stand my own company? You know, because we rarely ever get to experience that. There's just so many opportunities to be outside, to distract ourselves. So those are one of the nuggets, you know, of wisdom. If you're going to take away a positive from it, is that, that's something we can really sit with.
Definitely. And I think especially with all the closures of services and all the leisurely things that really made people stay inside, because you don't have the cinemas, the gyms, the swimming pools, the spas, the nail bars, all of that stuff that aesthetically help us in order to kind of define who we are. We've had to kind of relearn who we are through the silence. And that's definitely been something that's been poignant to me. So I know we're kind of wrapping up, but tell me about some of the support for people during this time where there are going to be a lot of closures. Obviously, some based around the Christmas time, but probably some because of COVID and the new variants and all that kind of stuff. What support can you offer, or what advice can you offer people that are accessing mental health support and therapy that are closed?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few crisis services, and what I'll do, I'll put the actual details of them in my story after this, so the name and the contact number. So if you want to screenshot and just save for another time, then it'll be easier to access. But apart from that, I mean, if you are already in therapy and your therapist is like maybe on holiday or something, finding ways to kind of use this opportunity to self-soothe, and look at ways that you can kind of build that autonomy, that self-power, like without your therapist. it's a really good time to also expand your support network as well, because sometimes we are in therapy and our therapist is like the only person that we lean on. It is quite healthy to have more than one person, which I know is a luxury sometimes and not everyone has that. But if you can find more than one person that you can share with, it's a good time to find people and perhaps to like spark up new connections, you know, where you can have people that you can really just confide in as well, and they can support you, you can support them. Also, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes for a second, make sure I haven't left anything.
We've got notes. A long
yeah, if you're about to go on a holiday break with your therapist as well, try to manage your expectations by having a discussion with your therapist around like what that's going to feel like, and giving yourself the space to process those feelings in real time. If you've already gone on holiday, your therapist is not around, you can journal again, or even start writing up a letter, and you can add a line or a paragraph to it whenever you feel that you're really struggling. And by the time you go back, you can share it with your therapist as well, and just talk about how hard that time was for you. Apart from that, before we end, was there anything? I think an easy sort of, because we talked about a lot of triggers at the beginning, and you know, people using substances, distractions, and family conflict that are going to come up. Just one mindfulness tool, if I was to say an easy takeaway, is like box breathing as well. It's something that you can do if you're, you know, at a Christmas party and you just want to like escape to the toilet and you're finding that you feel quite tense in your body. Box breathing is really easy to do, you know. I will post a box breathing technique in my stories as well, just so that you can also follow along, or like you can just Google it as well. They're like loads you can follow on YouTube. Any other tools? Just a word of advice to be self-compassionate, and to just be easy with yourself in terms of expectations around gift giving, around healing. And one of my personal practices as well is to try and mirror the seasons that we're in nature. And I know at this time of year, there is this added burden to like not only give a lot to others, but to be a better version, you know, like it's 2022, new version, new me, all of that stuff. And I'd really like to challenge people to just let go, because if we're looking at nature and we're in the cycle of winter, you know, and winter is about death, and it's about shedding the old, as opposed to adding more new things. So perhaps just giving yourself one goal, and that is, what can I let go of and what can I leave in this year? But trying not to put the burden on yourself to like get a better body, have a new diet, have more money, have the this, have the partner, the cat, whatever. You know, like just be easy on yourself. If you need permission to not do that, I've given you, this is your permission slip. So yeah. So I hope that's helpful, and I'll put the other resources in my story.
That is very, very helpful. And I think just to add to that, a lot of people do vision boards at this time of year and try to cram absolutely everything: 5-year goal, business, new career, children. Actually creating a vision board for what healthy you looks like. And that's my one tip that I'm going to give to everyone. Actually looking at the self-care goals that you're trying to achieve and make them movable as you start going through the year and you start seeing your healthier behaviors come to light. That's something that many people take for granted, is you want to try and do all of these things and achieve all these things, but you've not actually put self-care in the center of that, which is you are your house, you are your sanctuary, and you are your own means of self-care, as well as others. But it all starts with you either reaching out to someone for support or reaching out for therapy, but it all results back to you. So that's my one thing.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. So as we round up, please let people know exactly where they can find you, and anything that you've got coming up for 2022 as well, because I know you're looking to do some group therapy in the future. So where can people find you? What are you doing?
Yeah, so Vivify Therapy, my Instagram page, I will be posting details on my group therapy sessions that will be happening from end of Jan, early Feb. So I'll put a link soon after Christmas. I'll be going on break soon. So early Jan, I'll put out a link for people to join, and details on what those groups will entail. And the idea really is for us to be able to support each other in our healing, whether you already have a therapist, and this is something that you want to do as an addition, just so that you have other people to support you on that journey. Even if you're one of my clients and you want to join, and just so you have something separate to do and to be able to connect with people, that's something that you'll be able to do. So details will be up on my page and also my website, vivifytherapycom. And I also post quite regularly on Priscilla Vivian Counselling page on Facebook.
Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, Priscilla, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you, sis. And yeah, I'm sure whoever has got a body of information and nuggets of knowledge that they can carry them through to the season's ended, I guess. But just thank you so much for being you, lovely, kind soul. And yeah, I will be sharing any information. I too will be going on break, but there's obviously our first that you can go back and look at some of the support information that we've been posting. So we are all here, and yes, the live will be saved. Just don't worry. And anyone else?
Thank you, sis, for having me on. You know, it's always a pleasure to connect with you, and just your radiant energy always it comes through in the conversation and in the vibe. So it's lovely to have this conversation with you.
Much love, much love, much love.
All right. Okay, have a lovely weekend. Don't work too hard.
Oh, trust me, I won't. All right, those thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. I will speak soon. Peace.
All right. Bye.
Bye.